Hello. It's Tuesday afternoon, the 27th of August, and thought I'd take a few minutes and talk to you about the method of transcendental phenomenology, the major subject of this book, something that you'll see in some elaborated detail if you look at chapter 5 in the book as you have a chance. Epoche, phenomenological reduction, imagining variation, and synthesis. I think I may mention a little bit about this in the first video, but wanted to take a few minutes and just speak specifically about that. You have an assignment that is posted this Saturday, the 31st, and it's due a couple of weeks later on Friday, September the 13th. Friday the 13th. Good thing to keep in mind. Anyway, so I wanted to give you a little background on this. There are Prof's notes up there, about a page and a half, I guess. Yeah, there's another page here somewhere. Here it is. A couple of pages. And that person up there here is Edmund Husserl, if you hadn't figured that out. That, of course, is me. And Edmund Husserl is the author, the writer, the social theoretician, the philosopher of phenomenology, and that Moustakis bases his presentation on, and the way that we think about this course, and the way I want you to think about doing qualitative methods. I think, as I said in the intro video, we have a peculiar problem in the social sciences. Our objects are essentially invisible. Friendship, love, family. I mean, there are persons involved, people involved in those, but we don't always know if we see 3 or 4 people standing together, whether they're friends or family. We don't know if we see a couple standing there, male and female, whether they're brother and sister, friends, lovers, or what they are. So one of the things that we have to do as social scientists is look at those phenomena in a way to try and bring the indicators of the presence of the relationship and the social phenomenon that lies around, between, and among the people we're looking at. And transcendental phenomenology is about doing that. And your assignment on the method of transcendental phenomenology will be about finding something out there at a mall, at a bus stop, around your family table, or wherever, where you are applying the phenomenon to see what you can, the indications of it to appear. I had mentioned that, the physical scientists, their objects are physical, like the frog, and things that you can do, you can taste it and all of that, I mentioned in the other video. But we don't have that. Our phenomena are not as readily visible to our sensory apparatus. So that's what we do here with this course and with this text. Now, just to remind you, there is another text in the course, which is this, and at some point later in the semester, right, very late, we'll take a look at the qualitative study that you have done and begin thinking about how to recast that into a quantitative study. Some of you may be taking the qualitative after having already done the quantitative, but we'll worry about that at the end of the semester. This is not the primary book for 6315, but it is an essential book about halfway through the course for us to begin to frame what we're doing in a quantitative way. This is the primary book for the course. Okay, so there are 3 or 4 pieces to the transcendental phenomenology. There is the epoche, and the epoche is about the term or the phrase you've heard, we look through a glass darkly. And what that means is that we filter, and the reality that we see is maybe the reality that we're of the filter of our culture, maybe of our life experiences. So we see reality in a certain way. With the epoche, what we want to try and do is remove any preconceptions, shall we say biases, that that give us a tendency to see the world in the construct of who we are, and not in terms of the construct or the reality as it itself gives voice. This is important, like say for example, when the work that I do in community, and we're trying to understand health dynamics of a neighborhood, the last thing anybody needs in those neighborhoods is for me to come over there and say, this is what your health problems are, and these are the strategies that you need to employ to improve your health. A better course of action would be to rid myself of my my framework, my grid of understanding, my education, however you want to say it, so that I'm all ears and I'm listening to the voice of the people in the neighborhood and not imposing on them any ideas that I might have. And that way, when they say what are the issues, and those are issues of their heart and important to them, and in order to begin the development of any, say, health intervention, then that becomes a product of their own conversation and not something that I'm bringing from the outside in. So it has some practicality to it. So the epoché then is removing any biases, any preconceptions, and as you do that, you may close your eyes if you're sitting in a mall. You don't want to be too weird with this. People will begin to notice you, but I'm not saying that you sit there with your hands over your eyes, but you might have your eyes closed for just a second, and then removing all your preconceptions that you have, and then opening your eyes to the transcendental reduction. You're reducing yourself down to something in front of you, perhaps a couple that are sitting in front of you, or a man and a woman, or a group that you had seen before you did the epoché. The epoché is a way to remove any biases and preconceptions about what constitutes the dynamics of that group, and then reducing your focus of everything around you to just that, so as though you were seeing it for the first time, removing the darkness of looking through a glass darkly. So your glass is clean and pristine, and you can see it for itself. Let it speak to you. And then you begin to look at it, and then you can allow your imagination, your imaginative variation, to begin to think, well, what might this be? You're not coming at it at the very outset, this is what it is, but you're allowing it to appear through a pristine, clear glass of your mind with no preconceptions. And then, once it's in front of you, reduced transcendentally, it's out there, transcends you. So once it's there, then in front of you, then you can allow your imagination to go and look at what are things that are happening, what are the indications that might suggest what this social phenomenon is. And at that point, you may go through a series of, well, it's not this, it's not that, it's not this, or however you might want to diagnose it. But at some point you'll come to a realization of what that is. The dynamic you see is something different than what you might have imagined a family would be, let's say. And so that when you begin to look at it, you realize it's a group of friends. They're out they're shopping together, And so then that becomes obvious, whereas at the outset, if you hadn't done the epoché, you might have just arbitrarily said, well, it's a family. So the whole process is to allow what you want to see cleanly and clearly, allowing that to speak to you in its voice, and then you're beginning to interpret it with your imaginative variation and applying different sorts of things and coming to an understand of what it is without that preconception. That's really what this is all about, the assignments you've got this week. And that's really what the course is all about. We're going to do a number of different things. We'll do something called ethnomethodology. The classic kind of way of thinking about that is, what are the ethnomethods? What are the methods that we use to navigate? It's almost like an ethnography. What are the methods we use to navigate social reality? We go down the hallway on the right-hand side often, probably because we drive in this part of the world on the right-hand side. We go around a mall on the right-hand side for the most part, look at windows off our right shoulder, mainly probably because we drive on the right-hand side. I was in England over the summer where my daughter is. Things would go the other way. They drive on the left-hand side. They go around the mall on the left-hand side. So probably nobody tells you to do that, but we just know socially and all, how to, in an ethnographic way, how to navigate. Ethnomethodology is about breaching those things. For example, you get on an elevator. This is just a weird, absurd one, but it's commonly used as an illustration. Get on an elevator and face towards the back. You walk in, and there's the back of the elevator, and you just stand there. Who told you had to turn around? Maybe it's convenient to get out the door that way. But you could stand and face the back of the elevator. People might think you're a little weird. They might begin to ask about it. They may just try and get off at the next stop, even if they weren't going to get off on that floor, because you're a little unusual. The point of the breach of these kinds of things is to breach a social phenomenon and, in some kind of a dialogue, get people to begin to talk about the assumptions that underlay the principles of the navigation of that phenomenon. Like walking on the left-hand side of the hallway and bumping into people, as opposed to on the right-hand side and sort of moving with the flow. I mean, it's not about having fun, although you can do that. It's really about coming to some realization of what are the assumptions. Line behavior is another example. Why is it that when you're in a line, you feel uncomfortable, somebody's too close behind you? You can breach if somebody's in front of you, get right up close behind them. You want to be careful about these kinds of things. There's a certain idea that with your extended arms, everything within that radius or diameter is your personal space. When in this crazy social world do we have that much room in a crowd? It's usually like this, right? So when we're in line, you would think that person would be about arm's reach, and over here would be about arm's reach. But often it's crowded. The behavior is crowded. People feel uncomfortable. Our personal space is breached. So there are a lot of illustrations about that along that line that happen, just kind of natural experiences out there that you can see in how uncomfortable you can be, or see the discomfort of others when they're in the line behavior is being breached. And people want that space, but it's not happening there. Anyway, ethnomethodology is about intentionally breaching, or maybe observing some breaches that happen. That's phenomenological approach. That phenomenon of line behavior really comes to the forefront when somebody violates the principle that underlie it, giving people a proper amount of space as best you can. We're going to look at observations. You'll see that as an assignment. We're going to observe how people interact, say maybe around a table, and being able to look at how the reaction is going and who's talking most, which way is the pathway of conversation going among 4 or 5 people, who are the principals at the table, in other words, and then use a sociogram to diagram that. Who's the star? Who's the one that most of the conversation's going to? Some of the conversation may be a thick line because there's some conversation going along there pretty regularly, but across the table a dotted line because fewer people, there's less conversation going to the person across the table. Sort of sociogram that phenomenon of conversation. And then we'll do something called dramaturgy. And dramaturgy is another kind of phenomenological way of thinking about how we sort of set the stage. It is like we're playwrights. Now, for the most part, we don't set a script and manipulate one another, but there are scripts. I'm the instructor and you're the student. There are certain things that we can do together and talk, but there's certain things that we're prevented from doing. We might come to the level of friendship, but as long as we're on faculty and student relationship, we probably can't go much farther than, friends, let's say. So there are scripts, and there are some things that we learn. Like if you become a father, you already kind of know from your experience, maybe observing your own father and fathers of your friends, kind of like what fathers are supposed to do. And of course your children will explain that to you very clearly and train you in the way that they think a father should be. But there are scripts that we have. Some scripts even require wearing certain kinds of clothes, like a banker will wear a coat and tie. If you're a pizza maker, you can wear a coat or a jacket or a shirt that says whatever pizza company you're working for. Or here, Our Lady of the Lake University. I'm not required to wear this, but I'm wearing it today as part of my costume, if you will, playing the role of a professor in this video. So we're going to be doing a lot of phenomenological stuff, looking at it a whole lot of different ways. That phenomenon, so many facets as a crystal, looking at it from different different ways over the course of the semester. But all of it is the idea of enabling us, or creating, using techniques that enable that phenomenon to appear to us. It's indicators of its presence so we can begin to examine it. And that's what we're going to be up to. And this assignment that you have coming up starting Saturday for a couple of weeks, is about doing the épauché, the phenomenological reduction, and all of that. And I'll be up in discussion. I don't know if I've posted a discussion thread this week, but I'll be up in discussion before too long, and before the week's over with, and maybe post a thread. But anyway, that's what we're up to. This basically is the introduction to opening you up to the idea that we have to do something uniquely special in social sciences to get our objects present to us, so that we can examine them, unlike the physical scientists who have physical objects like rocks and trees and frogs. We have something very different. Challenging but exciting, and I think you'll find this is the practice assignment 1 is even fun to do. Okay, so that's all I have to say right now. Probably will not do another video until next week, which will be Labor Day week. Probably starts on the 3rd. I think the 2nd is a Monday. So I'll post another video next week about whatever we're going to be doing next week as we move on into the next assignment, ethnomethodology, and the readings I post next week. So anyway, this is Tuesday. I hope you're having a good opening week of the semester, and I enjoy working with you, and let's keep up the dialogue and sort of create the phenomenon of who we are on SOCI 6315, and I look forward to that. I hope these videos work. I'm just informal, sitting on a stool here in my office and talking into a camera, much like I would if we were in class. So hopefully they work. Take care out there, and talk to you later.